Yo, what's happening, people? And welcome back to the Tiki Taka podcast, where you're going to hear hot takes, unbiased opinions, and hopefully have a couple laughs along the way.
Yes.
And obviously, international break. I don't know about you, Michael, but I've been so bored the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, the thing is, obviously, I don't even watch the games. I just I'll see the highlights on Twitter, or if there's a.
I was out the other day and someone was like, "Why are England playing Malta?
I hate
Why are
that.
France beating Gibraltar 14-0?
14-0 as well. It's so dull. It's so. It's those Gibraltar games that really get me. If you're South American, it's like, oh, we saw Argentina, Brazil. We saw
But
Argentina.
those games are like
Yeah.
1-2 o'clock.
Yeah, we saw, but that's what I'm saying. At least if you're a South American who watches the Premier League, you think,
The international break will be fun. Yeah,
I saw Uruguay, Argentina. All of the hullabaloo,
yeah.
all of this kind
Even
of stuff.
like Uruguay, Colombia. Yeah.
Us in Europe was just like, oh well, yeah, San Marino,
Yeah.
at home.
I'm watching Austria, Germany with Kai Havertz doing a left back shift.
Yeah, North Macedonia
Yeah.
versus.
But yeah, so we're not gonna cover that,
course
obviously. And we're actually gonna do the top 10 current Premier League wingers. When I say current, I don't just mean like this season or right now on form. I mean like kind of just in terms of players that are currently playing, just to differentiate that from like all-time Premier League wingers.
Yeah.
And if you're here for the top 10 summer transfers, you'll know because we've done it in the same way. But if you're new and you're watching this one, you haven't seen that one, watch that one. It was a good video. But I've basically asked 8 people for their top 10 lists in order, then assign points based on the positions that they gave for each player, and then come up with a combined list of 8 people. So that should be more unbiased. Otherwise, you're just getting mine and Michael's list.
Yeah.
And you'll accuse us for Arsenal bias.
True.
But yeah, asked a whole bunch of people, got their list. But before we get into that, big news in the Premier League this week is that Everton have been deducted 10 points. They've been found guilty of breaking FFP. They had one charge, obviously been found guilty, and now they're 10 points deducted.
Yes.
I still think they'll stay up.
I think they'll stay up
because I think the quality of the league is really low.
I just think of all the teams to put that battery in their back or to put a chip on their shoulder, Everton are a team to actually respond to having a chip on their shoulder. I don't think they will.
Yeah.
I think it'll bring them closer together rather than like buckle them or players starting to look for moves away or
and their fans already kind of feel like everything's always
exactly. Do you remember last year when they were like, there was a perception of Everton fans that were all violent hooligans?
Yeah, that fan. Do you remember that fan was telling Gary Mina, "If we go down, are you gonna stay?
Yeah.
Are you gonna stay?"
Remember they told the board not to turn up because there could be a bomb.
Yeah.
There could be a bomb in the crowd.
Anthony Gordon forced his way out. Everton fans still ain't forgiving him. But yeah, like you say, I think I don't know, how do you feel in terms of, obviously Everton have now been charged, and obviously we're not lawyers, we're not financial analysts, we don't know what's going on with Man City's 115 charges. Obviously they're talking about Chelsea now as well. But yeah, how do you feel in terms of what the punishment that Everton have been given? Because a lot of people, I know Jamie Carragher, who's obviously a Liverpool fan, came out and said that it's harsh.
Yeah. Well, to be said about Jamie Carragher, as much as he is a Liverpool fan, he was an Everton fan first.
And Scousers will stick together in it, so yeah.
Well,
but yeah, what's your opinion? 10 points seems like a lot, no?
10 points does seem like a lot. I like, honestly, for the Premier League to be the best league, I do think there has to be some sort of law and order, and I don't think teams should just be able to breach FFP and get away with it or do nothing. But honestly, my honest opinion is like those 10-point deductions, those kind of, that's such a like La Liga or Serie A type of thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's crazy to introduce it into the Premier League. The one benefit I'll say is I think it's good to deduct them now rather than at the end of the season. Like, it'd be weird for the season to end and then Premier League to be like, oh, by the way, you're on a minus 10.
Yeah, they can't do that. They can't.
Oh, you're relegated.
Yeah.
However, I do just think that it's really dangerous territory because, as you say,
they've set a precedent.
That was one charge for 20 mil over the thing. Like, maybe you pay a fine, maybe you pay 40 mil to FFP over however many years, on all this kind of stuff. But if you're going to, take 10 points of Everton, what do you do with City? I was just saying to you, like, this whole talk of relegating City and Chelsea isn't in the Premier League's best interest.
Yeah.
It isn't. I don't think it's in the Premier League's best interest, as much as I would love to see that happen. And like, it would just be Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham or whatever as the top clubs. you'd lose Pep for sure. You'd lose, at least a good 12 or 13 like star international players at Man City or at Chelsea.
Yeah, you made the point, and it's a good point, that Prem's meant to be best league in the world, best managers in the world, best players in the world. If that happens to Chelsea and Man City, it probably ain't going to be that anymore.
Exactly. But to keep it on Everton, I just think that I do think it's super harsh. I think they'll probably win their appeal. And I think they might get it reduced to 8 or 6 or something like that. Just because, once again, if you're going to, for 20 mil, set that precedent of 10 points, if you find out clubs have spent 50, 40, 100 mil over their allocated budget, then where really do you go from there?
Because now Everton are going to be asking the questions, and I think reports are that Liverpool are kind of leading the charge again, obviously against Man City and stuff. But there's rumors of like Abramovich paying side deals and paying agents under the table.
Of course.
I mean, City to get Conte in, to get Hazard in, all these guys.
There is no
we know about the 115 charges at City. I saw something today about Tottenham and the Jermaine Defoe transfer.
And also, I was want to ask you about like how retrospectively do you think you can go? That was
because surely there's a statute of limitations on some of this stuff, right?
It's like, all right, you got one past us, but
15 years ago, like surely it runs out. But I saw one Arsenal fan quote tweet the Tottenham thing and was like, "Oh, you can see like which clubs have class and are run the right way or whatever." Yeah, and one Arsenal fan replied to his tweet and was like, "Wait for Rouse and Ellie's brown envelopes to start coming."
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We're not in the clear here.
I don't
that
think
Pepe deal. There was some next shit going on there.
Also, do you remember how like ludicrous it was for us to spend 72 million?
5 installments. We were still paying for Pepe when he wasn't our player.
We wanted Zaha, but Raul knew a guy. Raul knew a guy.
I'll get you a deal.
But what I was gonna say is, you're also like a dog chasing your tail, because I don't think there's any big football institution that hasn't cut corners. I do agree that I still agree that it has to be law and order, and FFP has to show us something. Otherwise, everybody will just make FFP. But if you're giving 10-point deductions for 20 mil, you can't give 50, 60-point production, like, because what are you playing for? If I have a 100-point season and you take away 60 points, I'm getting relegated. So it's really, 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 really interesting how they're going to settle things. And I think more often than not, like, I think for sure, by the way, I think there's no way Man City haven't paid agents under the table. For like a Kanji coming for like 6 mil or 7 mil or whatever.
Haaland deal.
58 mil or whatever it was for a player of that quality of, also the Jesus and the Alvarezes who just turn up out of nowhere from South America and absolute ballers, and their dad got a house, and that their dad was part of the agent fees or whatever it was. So if you are able to catch those clubs, but I think unfortunately for Everton, they couldn't take a fine. Probably. I think Man City will be like, we'll pay the fine. And we'll pay the fine under the table.
They've done that before.
And we'll pay the fine under the table as well. And the charges will just kind of like fade into black. So the precedent, I think, is being set is kind of dangerous, because it can't just be Everton.
Exactly.
It can't just be Everton. It can't just be like Middlesbrough 20 years ago, Everton now, no one else for another 20 years. You have to, like, if you're doing points reductions, you're doing points reductions.
You can't treat them differently to so-called big clubs.
Even though I wouldn't want to see Rodri and all of these stars, KDB or whatever, Bernardo Silva, all of these stars leave the Prem.
I would love to see it.
I mean, part of me would, of course, part of me would, but like for the sake of having that post,
just watching.
Even though I wouldn't want to see that, I do think that if you're going to be serious about having some sort of uniformity,
you have to. I mean, if Man City and Chelsea are found guilty, then like, what they've been doing and what they are doing is sports washing. And
100. Like, I mean, Man City, those PO boxes,
and there needs to be a punishment for that,
for sure.
Because other clubs, like you say, it's not like all clubs are squeaky clean. Like, especially these big clubs owned by like billionaires, some of the richest people on the planet, right? But it seems to appear that, like, at least. And obviously, things could change and things could come out. And if that happens, we'll discuss it here. But Man United, Liverpool, and Arsenal seem like they're they're at least obliging by the FFP rules at the minute.
Yeah. Or
right?
they're not coloring so far out the lines that it's egregious.
Yeah,
where it's
yeah.
like
That 115 charges is crazy.
it's crazy. It's also crazy because I agree. The problem that Liverpool, Arsenal, and the last team, Man United, have, not the problem, but the benefit that they have is they're like legacy teams. They've been around for, not just been around, but they've been big teams for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
It's tough for a small team like Man City at the time to jump into that stratosphere without breaking a couple laws.
Yeah.
Without
and this isn't. I think for both of us, this isn't us being like anti-competition. Because Chelsea and Man City becoming teams that can compete and challenge for the title just creates a more competitive Premier League.
It's a better spectacle, for sure.
Which, yeah, okay, if you're just looking at it, whether you're a Man United fan, Liverpool fan, or Arsenal fan, you're like, okay, it's harder to win the league now because there's more teams that can compete. But just from a like general point of view, I feel like that's better than just seeing two teams. Like some teams saw Arsenal and Man United go for the title for so long.
Yeah.
Seen before that, Man United and Liverpool. After that, Man United and City. Like it's a better Premier League if there's more teams that can compete.
I'm 100% in sports for the competition of it all, and like having as many high level competitive athletes and teams as possible who can like have a good chance to win it. You never want to see just like F1 this season,
the same 2 or 3 teams.
F1
That's why we love NBA.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
a different team will win it every year.
Yeah.
Or but even like, for example, I've just got into F1, but it's crazy, dumb, stupid watching Max blow the rest of the circuit out by 100 million seconds every week, week on week on week, and you're turning up to see you can finish second. At the end of the day, you never celebrate second. So I do think that I agree. Those guys probably did break the laws, Chelsea, for all that kind of stuff, but in a very weird way, it's maybe for the benefit of the Premier League.
And
it reaped all the rewards.
And to the extent of how far they've gone, and like we say, 115 charges is mad. They should be punished for that. 100%. They should be punished.
100%.
And yeah, okay, it has created a better Premier League, but if that's come at the case of sports washing and teams that have finished maybe second or whatever, but behind those teams who have gone about things the right way. And this isn't even just an Arsenal thing. Like Tottenham have finished second to Chelsea before.
Yeah.
So it's not even, but those teams who have gone about things the right way, who have abided by FFP and other things, it's not fair.
Yeah, they're losing out.
Yeah.
They might as well just cheat.
Yeah, exactly. Just because they don't have an owner like Abramovich or Sheikh Mansour who's just going to do
Hodge.
Yeah.
And you're just going to let the 115 get away because
if it's coming from, because the thing that Man City will do so well is that they'll, because for the last 3-4 years or whatever, maybe 3 years, Man City have been statistically the highest grossing revenue team.
Did you see that the year is like 700 million in revenue, whatever it was?
Yeah. And I remember speaking about this with one of my mates who's a United fan, like maybe 2-3 years ago. And he was like to me, Amor, there's just no way
it's possible
that is like they're obviously hiding stuff, because there's no way that Man City are a more profitable or higher revenue generating club than a Man United or a Liverpool, who are the 2 biggest clubs in this country. There's no way they're making more revenue than Man United.
Yeah.
I think about the commercial club that Man United is,
in a shit
the amount
season,
of fans they have worldwide.
In a shit season, there is 50, 60, 70 million people that will still like buy another United shirt, or that will like, how many fans United have?
Season
It's impossible for City, even in this last 10 years span where they've been dominant, to surpass the like legacy and commercialness of United for the last.
Impossible.
It's impossible.
City might one day become a bigger club than Man United,
but they would need a generation.
Exactly. Which could be happening now.
Yeah.
But at this point, there's no way they make more revenue than Man United.
That 700 million is crazy. But I was thinking maybe,
I think they hide it in like Abu Dhabi sponsorship deals that are like, we're sponsoring the team. Here's the money coming through, and
400, 500.
They're doing whatever they're doing with that to funnel it to transfer fees and wages. And I reckon it must be so difficult to actually find and convict them.
But I think if you have 150, I was going to ask you, what would be a crazier outcome? Man City getting charged, getting relegated, or FFP finding nothing to charge Man City on for the 115 charges that they have put forward?
The crazy outcome would be them being charged and getting relegated.
You think?
I think so, yeah. Because I just don't think FFP are gonna do it.
I as I said, it's not in their best interest. But I think it would be crazy to put out 115 charges on Man City after punishing Everton and then being like, oh, by the way, none of them stuck.
They're found innocent.
Yeah. I think that would be like
it would
a
be
huge omission of like maybe we're also taking money under the table.
But I think I just think they're gonna be in like the court, like arguing
back
about
and forth,
this
back and forth. Yeah, we need to
years,
litigate this.
man.
And Man City obviously have the money to pay the lawyer fees to delay this.
That clip of them turning up with like 50 lawyers coming in. It's like,
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. We like I think we have to pin it and just say we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
We'll definitely keep you up to date about sort of how we feel about it.
Because we probably won't have a resolution on this for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So, but getting into the topic of this week's one, top 10 Premier League wingers. And we had 18 different names. So obviously on our top 10 summer transfers, I think we had about 22 or 23. And the reason that I made this both sides, left wing and right wing, is because I thought that if it was just left wing or just right wing, the list would be
it's too much of the same,
fairly straightforward.
Yeah, a lot of us would agree.
And I think the names, even the orders, I think would be the same. So I think it made it more interesting. And just so you guys know, there are a couple of people that when I sent the message out to get people's lists, I mentioned a couple people that weren't classed as wingers. One of them was Bernardo Silva. If he was a winger, he'd be very high up on my list, maybe one or two. But yeah, I think especially this season, he's played a lot more in the center. Last season, he played a fair bit on the wing, but I would count him as a centre midfield player.
Yeah, he doesn't fit the boots.
Yeah. I know Eze was another one who can play on the left, but mainly plays as a 10, so they want to count him. And the main one was Son. And my reason for doing that is because I knew that if I did include Son in the wingers list, he would make most people's lists, and he wouldn't be making anyone's list based on his merit as a winger.
It would just be he's a good goal scorer.
Yeah. Like Son's this season, Son hadn't scored a goal until he went to number 9, and then he's been bought. If we did a top 10 strikers list, I would say include Son, and he would be in that. He would be in the top 10. So it's not anything against Son. And even last year, we know how bad Son was last year. I think he still scored maybe 10 league goals or whatever. But as a winger last year, I think his numbers this season and his output and performance would have influenced.
I agree with you. I just think moving forward, Son is a number 9.
Yeah, like, exactly.
It would still be.
I just didn't want him to take up a spot on our wingers list, and maybe like
of a winger who actually deserves
exactly
right. Shout, yeah.
But yeah, we'll get into it. So 18th, Harvey Barnes. One person had him.
Why the?
Me.
Is it?
I had him 10th.
I rate Harvey Barnes.
I love Harvey Barnes. I
said it at the beginning of the season as well.
I look at Harvey Barnes and he's I describe him as like a let's dance winger. Like he'll just get it and let's go 1v1 every time. He scored 13 goals in the league last season in a team that went down.
Relegated.
And yeah, I think it's a shame he's got injured.
You kind of forget that Newcastle have Harvey Barnes out.
Yeah, exactly. And in the first 2 or 3 games, I think he's got 2 Premier League goals. It's a shame he got injured because I think he'd be doing really well there.
Yeah.
Especially Champions League football as well against high lines and stuff. But yeah, I rate him highly. I think obviously because Leicester got relegated, and maybe people don't even know, 13 league goals, man.
Yeah. No, Harvey Barnes is he's a good winger, and he's always kind of had that 10. Plus goals and whatever.
Which is not, you can't sleep on that.
And he's young. He's only like 24 or 25 or whatever old he is. I do think Harvey Barnes is a good winger. And the interesting thing about Harvey Barnes, unfortunately, about his injury is like he took now a step up. So now we'll be seeing him in the top 6 team, as you said, Champions League, all of this kind of stuff. So I can actually kind of hear it based off last season's form. And obviously, it's unfortunate he got injured. But towards the end of the season, he probably will step up and do the things.
Like, it wouldn't surprise me for him to finish, even with this period out injured, for him to finish the season with 10 league goals.
Yeah, I agree.
Which I think is...
No, Harvey Barnes is a good shout. He just couldn't make my list just based off this season.
Yeah. Well, he was only in my list. So, yeah, that's fair enough. And I guess once we start to realize some of the people that maybe aren't on my list, and Harvey Barnes
We'll
did make
see.
it. There'll be more conversation to be had. But then in 17th, Hwang
How many
Hee-chan,
votes?
1 vote. Bat had him 9th. Which surprised me. And there are quite a few surprises on Bat's list. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm wary to rip him again because of the Cole Palmer thing. The Cole Palmer, he's got so much credit in the bank from the
just
Cole
in
Palmer
case he's a
thing.
clairvoyant.
Yeah. But yeah, so he had Hwang in 17th. Brennan Johnson 16th. Bat had him at 1 vote. Only person that had him.
Wow.
Bat had him 7th. 15th. Kulusevski. Bat had him 4th.
4th, 1 vote.
Yeah, 1 vote. That's why he's there.
He's losing all credibility right now in those last 3 names. I don't know how much credit you've given him.
Hwang, Johnson, and Kulusevski. So you can imagine the names that aren't in his list.
yeah, those have taken up 3 spots.
3 spots. I was finding it so hard to get people in my list. I wanted to get Moussa Diaby in my list, but yeah, Bat's got Kulusevski in 4th.
That is hilarious.
The 4th best winger on either side. Remember,
and you know what's crazy?
Not just right winger, either side.
You know what's crazy about that is I don't know how he could even justify it based off last season where he's 1 goal.
1 goal.
Yeah, and this season where he only has the 1 goal.
Still, I don't know. I don't know what the justice. When he sent it to me, I replied and said, "Now send me your real list."
yeah.
But yeah, again, I got to be wary because
maybe
Cole Palmer thing.
Hey.
Who knows? But yeah, moving on. 14th was Mbeumo. He had 3 votes. Bat had him again. I had him, and Adele had him.
I wanted to put Mbeumo in.
I had him 9th.
I just couldn't find the space. I was wanting to put him in, but yeah, I also think that it would have been a bit premature. Like last season was just like, oh, okay, it's a player. Like the season before, we thought, oh, he's a nice piece, but
yeah,
it was all the like, is he gonna get goals and assists? Is he gonna do X, Y, and Z? Last season was like, okay, and then this season we're seeing a lot more of him because Tony's out.
I think that's a big part of why he made my list. Was I thought that Brentford team and Mbeumo would suffer without Tony, and he's just kind of stepped up, taking the mantle, scoring goals, providing assists, and yeah, I just think he's a very, very good player. It's like we always have the conversation about Premier League wingers, and we spoke about this when we spoke about Jadon Sancho and how if you're not fast to be a winger in the Premier League is tough, right? The only way you're going to cope if you're not fast is if your technical ability is so high.
Yeah, through
Riyad Mahrez, Jack Grealish, Phil Foden,
Trossard to an extent.
Yeah, Trossard, Bernardo Silva when he plays out there. Those kind of guys, your technical ability has to be on that level. And I'm not saying Mbeumo's there with those guys, but sometimes he plays as a winger. Especially when they play a 4-3-3, but his technical ability is very good.
Yeah, no, he's and he's not slow either. He can beat his man.
Yeah.
He has a lot of combination, and he's young as well, 24. So I do agree.
Yeah, I couldn't believe he was 24.
Exactly. I do agree that he has like a lot of everything to actually be a top 10 winger in the league. I think for sure.
That left foot, man.
Exactly, it's golden. So I think if he definitely stays on the same trajectory this season, he should be knocking on big clubs' doors, or big clubs' doors should be knocking on his, talking about how can we step you up? How can we get the best out of you? Because for sure, whether it's as a star or coming off the bench, he has a role to play in.
I think he could play for a top 6 club.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
But yeah, moving on. 13th was Diaby, who I just mentioned again, had 3 votes. Nick had him the highest in 5th.
Nick.
No, you didn't have him.
No, I didn't have him. The only reason I didn't have Diaby was because I've always had reservations about him coming from Germany. He surprised me. I remember we just touched on transfers. I was saying that he surprised me just because I thought he would really flop, and everybody was like, "Oh, we need him to not replace Saka, but like when Saka's out or whatever, we need a Diaby." And I was like, I remember going hard for Timo Werner, and
I remember when we used to have those
Timo Werner being a fucking dud. So I'm gonna wait and see. But he started off well for sure.
Yeah, I think like I said, I wanted to get him in my list, but I just thought, given what I've seen Harvey Barnes already do in the Premier League, I don't know if I can put him in there over him. And like I think nearly all the wingers that I've picked on my list can beat a man 1v1.
I mean,
the first thing I look for in any.
I was gonna say in the Premier especially.
Yeah.
Like if you're not at least bringing that to the table.
Yeah.
Out wide,
it's going to be tough.
Yeah,
it's going to be tough to cope. You look at guys like Anthony and Sancho.
Yeah, you're Jadon Sancho.
Like it's not going to work. But yeah, so Diaby in 13th, Mitoma in 12th, who I thought was unlucky again. Another one that he didn't make my list. But he had 4 votes. Adele, Wivey, Nick, and yourself.
I voted for him.
Yeah, you had him 8th.
He's a good player, man.
Yeah,
he's a very good player, and like the form last year was great. And to be fair, I think he kind of has carried the form into the season. It's not been like he scores or assists every week, but he's
definitely had a good season so far. Yeah,
he started off well. I do think like defenders just haven't really figured him out.
In terms of 1v1,
he gets past this guy.
He's another one who again was on my list, and it was a conversation of him or Harvey Barnes. And
what did he finish with last year, Mitoma?
I think he only did he come in January?
He only really started playing after Jan,
and I think he finished with maybe like 7 and 8 or something. He did well, but yeah, I was looking at Mitoma versus Mbeumo versus Barnes, and yeah, like I said, I wouldn't fault anyone for having Mitoma above.
He's got 3 and 3 this season in 12 games.
Yeah, which isn't bad.
So
isn't bad.
He got 7 and 5 last year.
Yeah. How many games did he play?
He had 33 appearances. So
okay,
you know how many he started.
But yeah, man, I just think because Harvey Barnes has scored double digits Premier League goals on maybe 2 or 3 occasions.
Yeah, no, Harvey Barnes is 30,
which I think for any winger is very, very serious. And usually puts up good assist numbers as well.
He got 13 and 1 last year.
Yeah,
and then he got 6 and 10 the year before.
Oh yeah, 6 and 10.
Yeah, in 32 games.
So putting up good numbers, man.
And then 9 and 4 the season before.
25 appearances. Yeah.
So he's always kind of been.
Yeah. That's why I think it's unfortunate for him that he obviously picked up that injury. Might have been in some more lists, but yeah, Mitoma in 12th and Jeremy Doku in 11th.
Yeah, I think this is just sample size for a lot of people. I think a lot of people, somebody had him in, but I
think Adele said that the sample size is just a bit small, which was the same thing for me, which is why he only had 2 votes, but yeah, managed to make Bat and Nick had him. I think Nick had him 6th and Bat had him 5th.
I'm not mad at it because I think at the end of the season, if you looked back, you'd be like, yeah, he's probably one of the top 5 wingers in the league.
Yeah.
It's just that I couldn't put him in ahead of guys who had, because as I said, I did my list off last season and this season. Sample size. And I think he was balling over there in Lille, but who gives a shit?
Yeah. And that means that 5 of the names that I've just read out were in Bat's top 10.
But wasn't this like this last time?
So there's only 5 names in Bat's list that actually made our top 10.
I feel like we need to watch more football with Bat, because what does he see? What does he see? You must see it through some different prism.
Yeah. and like I said, I'm being wary because the Cole Palmer thing, we sat here and laughed. So I'm not gonna go too hard. But the Kulusevski one I'll remember for
a long time. I'll hold you to that.
But yeah, now getting into our top 10, and in 10th place, treble winner. Some argue he was a bit of a bus rider on his way there. Was Jack Grealish.
I had him 10th.
Yeah, he got 4 votes. Wivey had him 5th, which was the highest. And I didn't have him.
I almost didn't put him in. Do you know why
I couldn't.
I feel that. Do you know why? The reason I had him 10th, or the reason I almost didn't have him in, was it was tough. He had achieved way more than the Buemos, the Netos, the Gordons. However, in terms of his winger game, I'm actually not that much of a fan of it anymore.
Yeah.
Like at Villa, cold, man.
I was going to make this point. Had we been doing this podcast and whatever
a year ago,
when he was at Villa.
Yeah. But a year ago, if you had done it a year ago,
he would have been top 2.
Yeah.
which is mad because obviously he hasn't lost that quality or anything.
He just
but
doesn't.
I'm not seeing the same Jack Grealish.
It's not. Look, I'm not gonna get onto him for it as well, just because I'm a strong proponent of players going to get their trophies. When it's all said and done, I appreciate that people want you to be a hometown hero and X, Y, and Z. But when it's all said and done, and you're on Sky Sports talking about, you just never quite got over the line, and they put that thing at the bottom, and it's 300 appearances, 100 goals, 50 assists, and that's it. You kind of want that legacy.
I think when you compare him to some of Man City's other wingers,
especially that we've seen in the past couple of years,
I just don't think he's hit the heights.
You don't even really see him beating men one-on-one anymore. No. He's such a keep the ball, recycle the ball, and he's good at that. He's great at that. Which maybe, to be fair, is what Pep saw in him, but he has lost that traditional wing play. But I kind of had to put him in there for
the way at Villa he used to pick up the ball and go past three players,
just drift past.
And it's unfortunate we don't see that anymore, because that's the kind of thing that I feel like a lot of people love to see in the game. But that's why I just couldn't. I used to love Jack Grealish at Aston Villa.
I agree.
One of his
but
biggest fans,
I just couldn't knock him. As much as I agree with you on the point you're making, I couldn't knock him in my top 10, because if I was Jack, I would have made the same decision. I would tell other players to make the same decision.
I mean, to have him, you had him 10th. I think that's fair. I'm not gonna argue with it. Matt had him 7th, but why have he had him
5th
above? Well, we'll get into this. I don't want to ruin the list, but we'll get into that. So in 9th place,
seems like this list is
not having a good season this season, having quite a poor season if we're being honest. But it's Marcus Rashford, who got 5 votes. Louis, Bat, Nick all didn't have him. The highest was 6th, which was me and Adele. Adele knows ball.
Don't do this.
we both had him 6th.
Don't do this. I first of all want to say I also had Grealish.
And let me say that I was surprised, low-key surprised that Michael had him.
I had to put him in. I had to put him in because I put Grealish in.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that I had Grealish 10th and Rashford 9th, so it seems like everybody's agreeing with me. I put Rashford in for the simple fact that he did play well last year. He was a threat. The goal versus us when he was like this guy type of thing.
Yeah.
And obviously, to be fair, this season he showed that he can do it still. I just think that I also did it for moving forward. I think Rashford will outscore Grealish or outperform Grealish goals and assist wise this season. I think Rashford is still sort of looking to beat his man, get balls in the box, take shots on target, that kind of stuff. And I would be doing him a disservice, because when he is on form, we are going to speak of him like he's a top 5, top 10 winger in the league. Yeah. So I had to put him in there. Kind of like I would have loved to have put a Neto or somebody else in there.
Yeah.
But
I was surprised because obviously we'll get into the other names on this list, but I thought maybe Neto would have made it, especially because I feel like maybe you're not Rashford.
I'm not. Yeah. Well, yeah. I just know who he is. Like, this is him. He's gonna go through 4 or 5 months or 3 months of and then he's gonna have 2 or 3 great months.
Yeah,
and I'll be here he's gonna have a purple patch. And
I think we might have this conversation with some of the other players that come up, but I think at their highest level,
they're a very good player.
I think, where do you think Rashford could be on this list?
At his highest level, I think he could be a top 3 winger in the league.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. If I don't know, it's always funny what makes an athlete tick, but if all the conditions were right, Rashford could rip any man, score pretty much any type of goal for a winger, and of either foot, of either wing, is always going to be a threat. And I would hate for any of my fullbacks to come up against a hungry, informed Rashford.
Just as for I mean, it might be quite an interesting conversation, but just because I know we both rate Raheem Sterling.
Yeah.
So Sterling at his highest level or Rashford at his highest level, which one would you take? Sterling in that 18-19 City team with Sane and the output he was giving, but Rashford, knowing what Rashford can do, the goals he can score. 30 goals last year Rashford got.
It's going to hurt me, but I would I would probably go Rashford, only because I think Sterling is going to have a better career. Will probably go down as a better overall player. As a better overall player, I rate Sterling or like Sterling a lot more than I like Rashford. But I do think that Sterling does need a lot of other pieces to get him his goals.
Yeah.
Whereas I do think
Rashford can be the guy.
Rashford can beat 3 guys and knock it bottom bins. And I just don't think in front of goal Rashford's better than Sterling, but Sterling always outscores Rashford.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. And I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah.
But
I agree with you, because I think Sterling, and again, I'm someone who rates Raheem Sterling, has rated Raheem Sterling. I think he like you say, he's been a great part, a very important part of great teams.
Yeah.
I think Rashford has that so-called X factor, and that like individual ability of just being the guy.
Rashford,
the number one.
Rashford
guy
can hit a knuckleball free kick from 30 yards and fly top bins.
Yeah,
and Sterling just can't do that.
And the Rashford Big Six comp that pops on my timeline like every 2 months, it's mad, man. He's a Big Six killer.
Yeah.
But yeah, Marcus Rashford in 9th. Obviously that might be slightly affected by the season he's having, but he still made the top 10. And in 8th place, Jared Bowen.
I had him higher.
Got 6 votes. Bat had him 2nd.
Okay.
2nd. Yeah. At the end of this, I'll go from Bat's 1 to 10. I'll read his whole list. But yeah, Bat had him 2nd. I didn't have him. I didn't have Jared Bowen.
I think that's a crazy omission.
Which is where, when I said we'll get to it, and we might get to a point where it's like, oh, how have you included Harvey Barnes over this guy?
Yeah.
Bowen was one I was thinking of. Originally, I did have him on my list, but yeah, I just thought that and Bowen's numbers have been good, man. That
8 goals and 1 assist already in 12 games.
Yeah. I mean, he's on fire this season. I think last season
he was kind of off it.
Yeah, but the season before that, he got 12 and 10.
Yeah, he got 6 and 5 last season.
Yeah,
and I think he did get 12 and 10.
But I just think that Harvey Barnes might have a bit more to his game. Like I said, the 1v1 aspect or something that I'm looking at.
I think there is not much between them, but I do think Jared Bowen has a big goal in a big game to win a European trophy. Yeah, and I put Jared Bowen in there because of that. I was like, last season he was kind of off it, but the season before he was balling.
Yeah. And he scored the winner in a final.
Scored a winner in a final to give him some pedigree, and then has just continued this season to be a kid. I mean, what kind of sealed it for me in Jared Bowen was that header last week in the box.
Yeah.
What is he doing? What is he doing? Out jumping central defenders. And
Bowen's very, very good, and he could. He's maybe unlucky not to be on my list, but I
think also as well for me with Bowen, there's a bit of a surprise factor in. I always underestimate West Ham players. I always just think West Ham players are kind of shit.
Yeah.
And I think for Bowen, it's for a long time I was trying to put him down, and now he's kind of undeniable in the sense of he's at the very least a very good player. In the league. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, if there wasn't Saka in the league, who would I think would be an attainable option to go out and get to replace him? And I think I'd probably go for Jared Bowen. In the league, at least. Not looking outside the league. Not looking for a Leao or...
Do you think Jared Bowen's better than Pedro Neto?
I think Jared Bowen will outscore Pedro Neto.
Your list would tell me that.
Yeah, I think Jared Bowen will outscore Pedro Neto.
I would 100% have Pedro Neto over Jared Bowen.
I think Pedro Neto has that explosive X factor.
Yeah.
But I think Jared Bowen would be a trust out type signing of he was worth every he was worth the money that you were going to spend for him. He would play a lot of games. He obviously he's injured now, but he would keep himself fit more or less. And the output would be there.
I think I mean you've got him above Rashford.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, But what? So do you think he's a better winger?
Yeah. Well, I think he's more reliable. I think Rashford's a better out and out winger, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I do just think that for the last 3 seasons, it's been tough to deny Bowen as a guy who loves to deny West Ham players. It's been tough to deny Bowen as a very good player in this league, and the trophy helps. And 8-1 in 12 games already this season is kind of nuts. So he has a bigger ceiling than I ever thought he would have. I really just thought he was all right. You know, Danny Dyer or not Danny Dyer, sorry. Like a Routledge or
yeah.
you know, but he's more than a Routledge. He's more than a he's more
Matthew Everington.
Yeah.
One of those guys. But yeah, I mean, like he's on fire this season. Scored in the final last season. I'm not even really arguing that he shouldn't be in the top 10. I think it's fair that he's in the top 10. But and I said this to Michael before. The way I've done my list is almost basically just in terms of the order in which I would sign them for Arsenal if I had my preference. And
you wouldn't sign Bowen?
I'd sign Rashford ahead of him. And taking that age and everything out of it, because we're not obviously including that. I'm just talking about how I would sign them on ability. You said you can sign Jarrod Bowen or you could sign Marcus Rashford.
For sure. Like if somebody could screw Rashford's head on and nail him down, he would have a better season than Jarrod Bowen. But I do just think, all things considered, Jarrod Bowen would be readily available.
No, I agree. He's more reliable.
Yeah,
I agree with
less
you.
Drama, less bullshit. Just like turn up to work, go home.
But I think Rashford's ceiling is a lot higher than Bowen's.
Who do you think finishes with more goals and assists this year? Are we doing another? Rashford's going to hit a purple patch. It
depends when Ten Hag gets sacked.
Oh, cop out. The fence sitter.
No, Bowen will probably end up with more. But bro, for any winger to score 30 goals in all competitions,
he was balling. That Barcelona game was crazy.
Yeah,
what was he doing?
Like, bro, imagine how the way we'd be singing from the rooftops if Martinelli did that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's just that you've got to take the good with the bad.
Consistency is a big part.
You've got to take the good with the
bad.
Which is
why I'm not really like saying, you can't have Bowen. How is it? It's just it's just the way that the way that I see it. I just think when Rashford's on it, and if he could be on it more consistently, he's so good.
Yeah.
But, we'll move on from Jarrod Bowen in 8th to Pedro Neto in 7th, a guy we've touched on. Again, got 6 votes. YV and yours truly, Michael, didn't have him.
Yeah.
I had him the highest. I think me and Adele had him 5th. Like I'm saying, man, Adele knows ball.
I don't know about this.
I had him higher than Rashford. You know how much I rate Rashford.
I just think, as I said, based on my criteria of last season and this season, Pedro Neto was out pretty much all of last season. And he's had a very good start this season.
But we know what Neto was on during lockdown.
Yeah. But that's the thing is, I also think Neto is an inconsistent player. I feel like there is games where you're like, man, this guy's a demon. And then there is a 3-4 game stretch where you're just like, nah. Like, you know.
I think it's more of an inconsistent team.
I agree. Like, I can heed that point of view. The only reason I excluded Neto was just that sample size. It's like, I know he's a good winger. I know he can beat his man. I know he can curl it. I know he can bury it. But before I put him in front of the names I had on the list who were like proven, they've hit the 16 or 15 goal mark. They've won the trophies. Like, I need to see that from Neto. I need to see a full season where he gets a 10-5 or he gets 12-6. Or whatever it is. He's already in 7 assists.
He's probably had a season with better numbers than Mitoma.
That would be a good shout, because I don't think he has. I feel like he finishes his seasons with 5 and 4.
Yeah.
With 6 and 2. But he's always injured. He always spends like a good 2-3 month period injured.
I think Neto's game, like, bro,
I would aggressively push to sign him. I would.
The amount of times Neto will beat 3 players and put it on a plate for Fabio Silva, who puts it over the bar.
It just
like his numbers are gonna be impacted by that. But like, whenever I watch Pedro Neto play,
he's exciting.
And he's the guy. He's making stuff happen. Like I said, I rate Rashford highly. If people listen to this pod frequently, you probably know that. But I still had Pedro Neto above him because I just think that
there'll be a lot of wingers.
Rashford, in terms of on this list, other than number 1, who people probably already know who number 1 is, Rashford's probably the best goal-scoring winger
Yeah,
when he's at his peak. But Pedro Neto has more to his game, I find. Like you said, he's already got 7 assists.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's gonna be a lot of wingers that won't get 7 assists.
Yeah. Like Bowen's got 8 goals, but he's got 1 assist.
I don't think Bowen will get to 7.
Yeah. And I just think Pedro Neto's all round game like that. I think he's got the abilities to be a kind of almost creative winger, but also have the facilities to be the explosive 1v1 goal scorer.
And I agree with that, but I think a lot of that is theoretical rather than proven.
True. Yeah.
And that's the only reason I left him out of my list. He was like, when I looked at the 10 that I wrote down, I was like, I want to get Neto in there, but I couldn't take him out for somebody that's won a treble, that's won a trophy, or that's won, because they've had those 10 plus goal scoring seasons and got something to show for it. But I do agree that like in many other lists, in many other criterias, I'd have Neto in my top 10. Or if it was like top 10 top 5 wingers who Big Six clubs should sign. Neto Bueno, would all be there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, he had 6 votes. Like I said, I did somewhat expect him to be in your list.
It's tough. It's tough, as I said. Last 2 seasons for me, it came down to like pedigree and ability.
But yeah, I mean, all this is telling me is that you and Wivey need to listen to Adele more. But we'll move on to number 6. And in 6th place, I can't believe he's this low. Luis Diaz.
Yeah, obviously a fan favorite of yours. I had him at 5th, I think, on my list.
So he actually had less votes than Neto and Bowen. He only had 5 votes. Bat and Nick didn't have him, and Adele didn't have him. So even though I'm bigging up his singing his praise, he didn't actually have him in his list. And I had him the highest. I had him 2nd.
But to be fair, I shouldn't have had him in my list. Like, if I was basing my list of last season and this season, he's had a decent start this season, but last season he was injured for a lot of it. But I just know that he's
the guy.
Yeah, he's a super quality winger. And I was thinking to myself, if there's anybody else
you had him fairly high as well.
If there's anybody else who wasn't named Martinelli on our left flank, I'd want Luis Diaz in the Premier League because I just think he would bag. And I still think of that. I like one of the goals that always stands out to me is that goal versus Crystal Palace when it was just like a ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Liverpool down to 10 men. He goes past 3 players. He's facing away from goal.
It's a ridiculous finish. He's quality, and if he's fit and he starts, he gets the goals and assists. No doubt. So he has to kind of be there. I agreed.
I had him the highest. I had him 2nd in my list.
Oof.
And the only reason I did that, obviously you mentioned Martinelli, and whoever else might be slightly behind him. The only reason I did that is because I've seen Luis Diaz. That season he came in January, and Liverpool
was balling.
Win the Carabao, win the FA Cup, play Champions League final, go 1 point behind City in the title. He came in January, and in that period, no bedding in, no, I didn't need to adjust.
Match day 1.
Like, this is crunch time, and he comes in, and he just takes the spot.
Do you think South Americans are just a safer bet?
Yeah.
Like, they just have this, like...
Yeah, because they've just got that ability. They're just here to play ball.
Yeah, they've just got...
They've
just got this, like... I know this game. It's like every other country or every other sort of country, when French, German, whatever, we always give them like, oh, it's tough. They got to learn the language. They got to settle down. They've got to like.
So most of the South Americans have come never learn the language.
They just
Fernandinho never gave an interview.
But like Aguero comes in. Obviously that's big praise. But like Aguero comes in match day 1.
Yeah,
brace. Yeah. As Jesus saying, comes in, scores on his. Martinelli scored an everyday debut for us. Diaz. Balling. Yeah.
Even last year he was scoring goals, scoring chances.
It's like, it doesn't apply. Whole like
even when Cavani came, Cavani was slapping goals.
It's like, we've got to bet them in. They've got to learn. They've got to like these guys from Palmeiras and
they're ready. They're ready.
It's Boca Juniors.
But yeah, because he came in and in that crunch time he won 2 trophies.
Yeah.
In that time, obviously played well in the Champions League final as well. I just thought that there are wingers on my list that I need to see do that before I put them above him.
I have no doubt in his ability at the highest level. Like, I would start him in the Champions League finals. I'd start him in the FA Cup finals. I'd start him versus City. All this kind of stuff. I think he's technically secure. He works hard enough, but he also has that little bit of X factor. Of he can just put one top.
That's the thing. It is the X factor.
Yeah. He can beat his man and draw yellows and like get balls to the ball and that kind of stuff, or he can just put one top bins from 30 yards.
I said to Michael, maybe this was soon after Diaz came in, and this is another hot take, that I think his ceiling is higher than Mane.
Yeah, you did say that, and I don't.
And I love Mane. I think Mane's top player. I always used to say Mane was better than Salah, but
Mane is so goated.
I think Luis Diaz just has the ability, like you say, man, that Crystal Palace goal.
Yeah, it's just fake.
I think he was scoring in Champions League semi-finals for Liverpool.
Do you remember when he was playing for Porto versus City, and
scored that goal?
Yeah, he scored that goal.
Crazy. He's already scored at Stamford Bridge this season.
Yeah.
That goal he scored against Tottenham, with the whole VAR, that goal is ridiculous. No backlift, crazy angle, barely inside.
He's one of those guys as well where it's like kind of like I was saying about Alvarez, where like in the bigger games, I don't want to go as far to say one chance, one goal, but like if he's through one goal, you back him.
Yeah.
When the lights are brighter, he shines brighter.
Yeah, he's got a chip thing.
Also,
finish,
the leap versus Luton.
Yeah,
he shouldn't be there.
Exactly.
He's 5'8" or whatever. He's like 5'7".
Yeah,
he stayed in the air for like 10 seconds.
Yeah. That's the thing. He just got that dogged, yo, I'm just gonna make this happen.
Yeah. And what do you think about that meme of his dad?
And yeah, I think he scored. What was he? He scored twice for Colombia on this international break and stuff.
Yeah, he's cold, man. He's cold. Man. But second is a bit high, I must admit.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll get into some of the other names on this list and we can discuss that further. But top 5 now. So just reading from 10 to 6, we had Jack Grealish 10th, Marcus Rashford 9th, Bowen in 8th, Pedro Neto in 7th, Luis Diaz in 6th, and in 5th place, Phil Foden, who got 7 votes. Bat was the only one who didn't have him. Bat had Kulusevski.
What prison?
Brennan Johnson.
As I said, what prison?
Hwang Hee-chan. No, but no Phil Foden.
I think... Looking at a list and thinking, yeah, Hwang Hee-chan is and I like Hwang. He's in my team. Like I like him.
Yeah.
But that's crazy.
But I'm okay with Hwang. Kulusevski.
Brennan Johnson.
But I think Adele had him highest. He had him 3rd. Wivey had him 4th. I think you had him 4th. I had him 8th, and I'll be real. I almost just, part of me really didn't want to put him in.
That's crazy disrespectful, man.
But I don't think it is, because I've been waiting for Phil Foden to step up and take the mantle.
Let's look at
in this Man City team for a while, and I don't think it's ever really been a case of like, oh, it's crunch time, we need Phil Foden.
You don't think?
Nah.
So he's also got 3-3 this season. 11-5 last year.
There's no doubting that he's a good player, but I think especially the Man City stats.
9-5 the season before in 29 games.
Yeah, but he plays for Man City. He should be higher than that.
What? But you always get onto him for not like 9-5 again the season before that.
They're probably like hat trick against Norwich and
5-2.
Hat trick against Burnley.
He scored a hat trick against United last year.
Yeah, all dead teams. United, Burnley, Norwich. You can put them all together.
I just think,
but he did make my list. He did make my list because I just thought, I know he's got the world class ability, his touch, the way he can take the ball in tight areas, the way he can beat a man,
the way he can score,
the way he can score in big games.
Yeah.
I just think that I expect more from a guy like Phil Foden.
I don't know how much more I expect from him. That's the thing.
I expect him to be the guy that's gonna be like, okay, yo, it's crunch time. Give me the ball. I'm gonna make something.
I think the old guard has to completely go for that to happen. I think KDB has to go. I think even maybe to an extent, Bernardo Silva has to leave for it to really become Foden's team. But I do think that with the minutes Pep gives him, he gets his with the minutes Pep gives him, because he's always in some sort of rotation. He's always either getting 60 or 30. He rarely ever plays 90 minutes. But even in those 60, 30-minute glimpses, you see a world-class player, and you're like, oh damn, this guy can ruin a lot of defenses. And I just think, and as I was saying to you before we started, I just think that if he wasn't playing for City and he was playing for Chelsea, or if he was playing for Villa, or if he was playing for Tottenham, week in, week out, we'd be like, yo, this guy is a serious problem. Even if he wasn't getting goals and assists, we'd be looking at his overall ability and thinking, oh, this guy's a serious issue. Because he'd be playing week in, week out, 90, 90, 90.
Yeah.
And he would be doing the Eden Hazard stuff, intangibles of like winning fouls up the pitch, taking the ball under pressure from the halfway line, just turning a guy, dribbling up 30 yards, winning the foul. I think he'd be doing all of those like progressive carries that you never really...
Yeah. It's difficult for me to...
And he can finish.
To be on board with that because it is just an if, innit? Like, could it go the other way? And those numbers we see him get from Man City, could they go down?
But I think if you believe that, now you doubt his ability. Because I think that he has the ability for sure to be not Eden Hazard for any of these other clubs, but to be that kind of winger presence or star ability presence where the game kind of hinges on what he's able to do.
I don't doubt his ability, but I don't think he's a winger.
I think he kind of like Havertz in the sense that you'll never nail down a position for him. You know, apart from Havertz, you could argue whether he deserves to be on the pitch.
This is top 10 wingers, right? So
you have to kind of classify him.
Foden's, you'd have to say he's a better footballer than Marcus Rashford and Pedro Neto, who I have above him. But if you're telling me that I'm going to sign this guy to play on the wing for 38 games, I'm taking Rashford and Neto.
I'm not mad at that, but I just think that
like what you think he's better than Martinelli? He's a better winger than Martinelli.
No, as I said, the reason I put him ahead of Martinelli was his pedigree of winning trophies, and not just that. It's his pedigree of actually scoring in those big games versus United versus Liverpool.
Martinelli's done that though.
The season before. I just think that if we had Foden in our team, like, it's tough because I'll take Saka over Foden. I'll probably take Odegaard over Foden as well.
Yeah, and I think Martinelli's more of the big game killer than Saka is.
But I don't think that there is a drop off at all if we put Foden in ahead of Martinelli or Odegaard. Seriously. I don't think there is really a drop off at all. I think Foden.
If you put him in for Odegaard, I don't think there's really a drop off.
I just think for real that he is.
But if you're gonna put Foden on the left wing instead of Martin, it's not even a conversation. Me, it's not.
I remember like some of those finishes, not last season, but the season before versus Liverpool.
Yeah.
They weren't. It's not that they were just tapping. Yeah,
past Alisson,
yeah. It's not that they were tapping.
But for that left wing spot, you're telling me I'm picking Martinelli all day long.
I am picking Martinelli all day long. And as I said, I think Martinelli's a better winger. The only reason I had Foden ahead of him was because I couldn't ignore the pedigree of the trophies, of the goals and assists, and of the big game oomph.
Yeah.
However, has to be said, Martinelli scored at Anfield, home and away. Sorry, scored against Liverpool, home and away. Man City this year. Like, Martinelli was really a guy I was banking on kind of to get 20 goals, 18 plus this year.
Yeah.
You know,
which I still think he could.
I think, like, as a winger, he's a better winger. I agree. But I just think that I can't minimize what Foden has done / has the ability to do.
Yeah.
And I just think that, as I say, for me, what separates these kind of guys is Rodri or Bernardo Silva or Haaland or whoever will, like, fire a ball into Foden from about 10 yards, and he will just kill it dead in his first touch, beat the man. And
that's why I agree with you. If you put him in for Odegaard, I don't think there's a drop off.
Yeah. I think he has.
But if you put him in for Martinelli, I think things change a bit.
Things do change a bit because he's not like an athlete like Martinelli. He's not running up and down as much.
And like I said, the 1v1 thing was the main part of my list.
And if you're basing on those criteria,
like, I just personally love a winger that's just gonna get the ball.
But you know what's funny? I think Foden can beat as many guys 1v1 as Martinelli. It just looks different. It just doesn't look as, like, wingerish as Martinelli. Like, Martinelli is like...
Yeah, but... okay, I hear that. But if we're on the break now and the ball gets fizzed out to Martinelli and you just think go at your man past the halfway line and the only person in front of him is the fullback.
Yeah, so...
Right? Phil Foden's...
He's not the same kind of guy.
He's not going to take that man on, but he might come inside and he might pay for the perfect through ball to the striker or whatever. But Martinelli's just going to go.
But how much of that is Pep corrupting Phil Foden to some sort of like utopia state football.
Yeah.
And how much of that is also
just don't lose it.
Yeah, South American dog.
And Martinelli. Yeah.
I'm just here to get shot. Martinelli in that situation, there's no way he's not getting a shot off.
Yeah.
There's no way.
He's probably not even looking up.
You
at
Jesus, Eddie's.
Yeah.
I'm free. If Martinelli does not hit anything else,
but he will beat the man.
He will beat his man, and he will get a shot.
Yeah.
I have no doubt about that.
Across the box.
Yeah. I have no doubt about that. I just think Foden probably has the potential to do the same, but it's so now like he's watched David Silva, he's watched this whole
he
like
might have some more finesse with his end product kind of thing.
Yeah. I say this to say that I'm not mad at,
but
he has
I
to
don't
be
know.
in the list. I just say this to say he has to be in the list because, and the reason he has to be there is because of how little games he does play through the center. Like he probably will end up there and should end up there, but for Man City he plays the majority of his games out wide. And as soon as KDB leaves, then I can start to be like, hey, look, this is your team.
Yeah, you need to. Yeah, but I feel like didn't we say that at the start of this season?
Maybe
we said we wanted to see Foden.
Maybe
no Mahrez.
Yeah.
Doku's coming in now.
I think it's been tough.
De Bruyne's been out.
Because what do you do with Alvarez? Would you rather Alvarez at wide?
Yeah, but it's not even about like Foden. Just make sure you're the first name on the team sheet ahead of Alvarez.
That's tough, though.
It is tough, but you're meant to be the guy.
I agree with you to a certain extent, and I also think that Pep fucks him over in certain extents.
Yeah,
because he would be in a lot of people's top everything if Pep wasn't rotating and putting him around, making him play left, right wing, center sometimes. I thought that Newcastle game when he played down the middle, he was very, very, very good.
Yeah, and then that's what I'm saying. As a number 10, I think that's why I'm not doubting his ability.
But I do agree.
He's top. But when I'm doing a top 10 wingers list,
fair.
That's the main difference.
Fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I think you've explained yourself fair enough. To be fair, I'm not like mad at it
because that shocked me, man. When I saw Foden on your list and then Martinelli,
the only reason pedigree and what he's done in those big games.
Yeah.
If Martinelli has maybe even if Martinelli only has 2 goals and then versus Man City and Liverpool, I'll probably have him against Foden next year. I'll probably be like, I don't care what the fuck Foden's up to.
Yeah,
he's not scoring, you know.
And it's that thing we spoke about before. Well, I mean, we can do the Martinelli chat when we get there. That's obviously Phil Foden in 5th, but in 4th was Raheem Sterling. Again, had 7 votes. Bat didn't have him. Kulusevski, Brennan Johnson, Hwang.
Bat is also the kind of guy to not rate Raheem. 100%.
I was actually surprised Nick had him because I know Nick doesn't
rate him like that.
But he had 7 votes. And you and YV had him the highest. You had him 3rd. Yeah.
He was off last season, but I actually said last season that I thought he was going to be the best transfer of the window.
Yeah. I think I agreed with that at the start of the summer.
Yeah.
And had Tuchel stayed, it might have been different. But for me, I had him 7th. And it's strange because if we were doing an all-time top 10 Premier League wingers list,
it'd be higher.
Sterling would be in my list. I don't know if he'd be higher, but he would be in my top 10. Which is kind of praise
to say about a guy who's not even finished his career and is only
he's not even 30. And especially given the company he Hazard, Beckham, Salah, whoever else is in there, Mahrez, Sterling would be in my top 10. I'm pretty sure. So for him to be 7th in this current list, but that's purely because, again, looking at last season, looking at this season, and like I said, I based it on the order in which I would sign players for Arsenal.
Do you remember I was saying I wanted Raheem?
Yeah.
Like I wanted Arsenal to go out there and get Raheem.
And there was a rumor. I think Arteta did ask.
Do his best, yeah. I really rate him. I think he looks... he's always going to look a little bit like unpolished and like, he needs to, fix up his technique and he needs to do this and this. But really, when it's all said and done, when you look at his stats across the seasons, what he's done, and it's not even just the stats sometimes, like he genuinely does score big goals in big games. And he does have a killer mentality and he can beat anybody 1v1. He's a winger. Like he is a winger. He is a traditional English winger. Either wing, he can get to the byline, or he can cut in, he can shoot. He learned a little bit more finesse at City in terms of reverse balls and all of this kind of stuff. I think, I like as much as I hear why people don't try to rate him that much. I think it's kind of ludicrous to not rate him.
Yeah.
To somebody have over 100 Premier League goals, 4 trophies, all of this kind of stuff.
Yep.
And you people will go and say like, oh yeah, but he played for Man City. Of course, everybody would go. When he left to go to Man City, everybody said like 50 million on Raheem Sterling. You know.
And when Pep came in, they said, "Oh, he's not a Pep player.
Yeah,
he can't play under Pep."
Are you sure? You know, all of this.
I saw something the other day that with all the teams Pep's managed, Barca, Bayern, Man City, the top goal scorers during their time under Pep, I think it was Messi, Lewandowski, Sterling.
Is it?
And the top assisters under Pep was Messi. There was some other Bayern player and Sterling.
I give Sterling so much credit for. There's so many wingers who you see become like super raw, super quick, have all the potential to be a good player, but never actually actualize that potential.
Yeah.
There's so many wingers that you see.
But, I mean, to be honest, we can really even include Marcus Rashford as that example.
Yeah. There's so many wingers you see who have like all the raw ability to be a great winger and never marry that with composure and technique and all of this kind of stuff. And Sterling is one of the fucking success cases of that. Yeah. However, I agree. It doesn't look as polished as when Mahrez does it. Those are like the only people you can mention.
Mahrez is another one. Like, in my opinion, probably top 5 all time.
Mane is, to be fair, another one, kind of like Sterling, who married that. Like, remember Mane was at Southampton, was just like super quick.
But I think Mane's did look better than
agreed. But he's like, those are like the 2 success stories of super quick wingers that were actually able to marry a bit of composure and technique to become world-class players. And I just don't like. I think, as I always say this, I feel like Raheem has lived up to his potential, and I feel like that in 100%, itself 100%. Is crazy on athletes because of how much we gas athletes when they're young. Like what they should do and what they should be by the time they're this age and who they should. Sterling is all the things we say.
Even in that Liverpool team, he had them in a title race.
Yeah,
obviously with Suarez, the other guy, but he was a part of it.
Yeah. And he's a different player now, but
again, I'm surprised though that he's above Martinelli.
It's kind of those. As soon as Martinelli hits 20 goals a season, you won't hear me ever shut up about Martinelli. You won't ever hear me shut up about Martinelli. I will be singing his praises till kingdom come. I love that. I love that guy. But it's just that you're going against guys now who have actually done it versus what I think you have the potential to do. Kind of like It's the Sterling thing all over again. It's like when Sterling was.
Who do you reckon scores more goals this season? Or gets more GA, because they are wingers at the end of the day.
That is a very good question. Martinelli's had a slow start, but I think he'll pick it up.
Yeah, same.
But I worry that Sterling and Nkunku could maybe have some sort of
chemistry.
Yeah. I mean, I need to know what Sterling has now. Maybe he has like 3 and 2 or something.
Yeah, I think so. He's definitely got more than Martinelli.
Yeah. I would go. I want to say Martinelli. I think there's going to be a game when Ali scores a hat trick.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's a good question. That's a really good question. I'll have to come back, but yeah, I just think the only reason I had him over Martinelli is simply for what he has already done and achieved.
Yeah.
And I know Martinelli has a lot to, apart from Arsenal fans. You know, there's all this still like he's just a kick and run merchant. All this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I just need him to score 20 goals, win a trophy, and I'll be like, yo, this guy, generational. I don't know.
Madrid are gonna come calling.
Yeah. 6 year though. 6 year contract. That's it. He's here to stay.
Lockdown. But yeah, I can hear that, especially given what he's won and stuff. For me personally, what they've won and stuff comes into it more in like an all-time list. I agree. Just going off it currently, but obviously people have done this list and interpreted it in different ways. Because I mean, even Wivey's got Grealish above Martinelli.
Yeah, I think for that as well, it's probably come down to what Grealish has won.
And just on that, third place is Martinelli. Again, 7 votes. Bat didn't have him.
And he had Kulusevski and Brendan Johnson.
And Hwang. So when I said to Bat, send me your real list, he was like, who am I missing? He was like, Shittinelli. I was like, well, okay, cool.
I actually think that there is just so much jealousy around Martinelli.
Yeah, yeah.
Also,
But every team, every fan of every other club looks at Martinelli, probably even more so than Saka, and thinks, well, Man United fans looking at Sancho and Anthony, and they're watching Rashford.
but do you know what it is?
Martinelli.
Do you know what it is about Martinelli that I think really grinds people's gears is the low fee, like nothing. Like how many clubs sign the 18-year-old kid from Brazil who doesn't really end up going anywhere?
Yeah.
And I think it's tough for guys to see Arsenal turn that into a potentially world-class player.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I think that's why he gets so much shit. And I agree that he doesn't look or doesn't play football like a Rafinha. Yeah, he doesn't play football like a Rafinha or a Neymar or all of these like great Brazilian wingers. However, when you see a Brazilian winger in your club down the wing, scoring goals, getting assists, ripping defenders, it feels the same.
Yeah.
It feels the same. You get the same sort of.
When he did that skill first day of the season against Nottingham
Forest. Yeah.
And
do you remember when he came on versus City and there's like a long switch and the first thing he does to Walker is like a double drag back to the byline, cut back, find Trossard for an easy pass, and
like, Walker's like, oh, okay,
it's like, damn, I got a long day ahead of me.
Me, Louis, Nick, and Matt, we all had him third, which was highest. I don't think anyone had him higher than that. You had him fifth, YB had him sixth, Adele had him seventh.
He bagged though last year. I
think that's kind of low. And yeah, for me personally, I had him third on my list. Obviously, Diaz was second. And to be honest, we may as well talk about these guys together. Because obviously they are both Arsenal players. But in second place was Bukayo Saka. Every single person had Bukayo Saka second. Even Bat. Oh no, Bat had him third because he had Bo in second.
Okay.
Bat had him third.
I was actually going to...
And I had him fourth.
Saka?
Yeah.
Because you had what, Diaz?
Yeah, and the Martinelli and Saka, it was really a toss-up.
Martinelli first?
But I put Martinelli ahead. The only reason I put Martinelli ahead, because like I said, I was thinking about it, like this could really go either
Tossing
way.
and turning.
Like, I really don't know. But the only reason was because when it came to crunch time at the end of last season, after the international break when we went to Anfield,
he was balling.
I felt like Martinelli,
he was balling,
like at Anfield, goal and an assist. Then scored in the next game. I think West Ham he got an assist. He was consistently Newcastle away. I think when it came to crunch time there, I felt like Martinelli really stepped up. After maybe going, and it's maybe unfair because before that, remember Martinelli went off the boil a bit. Trossard came in, and Saka was still producing. But yeah, just last season made us realize how important that crunch time is in it.
No, exactly. I do agree that in crunch time, he shines a bit more, or like you feel his presence a bit more on the pitch. But what I was gonna say when I was doing this list, I really couldn't. I couldn't tell the difference between Martinelli. The only reason I put Sterling in between was like I didn't want it to be too Arsenal biased, and I thought that Sterling does deserve a shout. But I couldn't really choose between Martinelli and Saka. They actually very much come as a duo and a pair and a partnership. I think Saka slightly edges it. I think Martinelli still has a higher ceiling. I actually don't really ever think Saka will get 18 Premier League goals. Whereas I fully expect Martinelli to get 18 to 20 Premier League goals. Like, I think Saka will always kind of be the 15 guy.
But I think Saka will always have more assists.
I think Saka can be a 15 and 10 guy in his best season. I think Martinelli can be like a 20 and 5.
Yeah. I agree.
However, what I do love about Saka this season is that just regardless of performance, the goals and assists. It again, I think
the other players in our front line maybe haven't been on it this season, but Saka's still.
But there's been games where Saka's not been on it, but has the quality. Has the quality in him to provide an assist.
Put it on a 6 points.
Or as well as the mentality to go to the end and it will work for me. Like Cucurella, got the better of him that day. But one of the one times he does get around Cucurella, it's about putting a fucking great ball in the box, and he does do that. And it is kind of nuts that Arsenal fan, non-Arsenal fan, there's a lot of people out there who think we have either 2 or 4 of the best wingers in
Yeah.
the league, and they're both like 21, 22 years old, and they both haven't even really probably hit their peak and prime or whatever. So
I was surprised that everyone thought Saka was better than Martinelli.
maybe
I thought maybe it was close enough for at least one other person to go.
I think that like other fans just don't seem to rate Martinelli as much as Arsenal fans do.
Yeah.
Like obviously Saka gets the England hype and he does have the goals and assists this year. But I just speaking to other fans or like hearing other fans' opinions on Martinelli, it's just like, oh yeah, he's all right. Like he's a good guy, but I proper think that it's a long day versus Martinelli. And I think that even on his worst day, he's going to give you a tougher time than Saka just because he won't stop. Like he's like, he'll go at you every time. I don't
know about that. Saka gives fullbacks nightmares.
I agree.
What Martinelli on his worst day and Saka on like his best day, Martinelli still giving more problems.
No, I just think on both of bad days.
Okay,
or even on an average Saka day and a bad Martinelli day. I think because Martinelli has this like,
the way Saka gets kicked around, man, he's beating players for fun.
It's true. It's tough to decide, but I just think that there can be games and moments where Saka has been kicked around too much and he'll get the ball and just give it back to Ben White. Get the ball and just give it to Jorginho.
Martinelli's more likely to just like get it and just even if he loses
it, he kind of wants to go at you.
Yeah.
But I don't know who's worse because I do think that like Saka can almost like shapeshift in some of these like takes and like he'll take the ball in his back foot or whatever and like leave it like those. I always have Mikalenko in my mind. Like Mikalenko's been ripped by Saka, like,
and then puts it in the roof of the net.
If you're, I would hate to be caught sleeping by any of the two, but I just think Martinelli's a bit more relentless.
Yeah.
Like he almost doesn't know if he's having a bad day.
Yeah, but obviously, like the comparisons we're talking about that just because that's where football goes, and they are two top players. But I mean, we will just talk about Saka here and what he's done, and obviously move on from Martinelli now. But yeah, I mean, for where Bukayo Saka came into this Arsenal team, Unai Emery actually gave him his debut, but then
at left back,
that infamous Chelsea game when after Arteta's come in and we're in the mud and Martinelli, Smith Rowe, and Saka. From that moment on, like Saka's really kind of
he's not looked back,
dragged Arsenal to where they are now.
Agreed.
Last season he was one. I mean, we had such a good season with so many like good players, but he was definitely one of the best. And I think he's on track to, like I said, if this had just been a right wingers list, he would have easily been second again.
I think the craziest or the best compliment I can give to Saka, what I think is so phenomenal about Saka's development is like we're at a stage now where 80-90% of the league would say he's better than 80-90% of wingers in the league. And it's always crazy and
from a guy that used to get compared to Brandon Williams.
Exactly. It's always crazy interesting to see your team's players go through. As every growth of a player, you have to get compared to some stupid, shitty ballers. But it's crazy to see Saka beat all of the allegations of all of these players and rise above them. He's doing it for England, in tournament, out of tournament, doing it for Arsenal consistently. Like, there isn't really many question marks over, is this guy a talented footballer? Is this guy potentially world-class? And I think that is crazy to have that from commentators, from fans who aren't even Arsenal fans, to have that universal acceptance of you almost, it's tough to get that. It's tough to actually get that universal acceptance of like, this guy is a great player.
Yeah, especially from
rival fans,
Like I said, Bass Tottenham fan had him in his list. And
that can only be achieved through consistency.
So what was it about Saka that made, because obviously you made the point about the Sterling and Foden trophies thing.
Yeah.
What was it about Saka, maybe more so than Martinelli slightly, that put him?
I think that Martinelli's had a tough start to the season.
Yeah.
And I think Saka's kind of had a tough start to the season, but you can see the discrepancy in goals and assists. And I don't think that is like a massive slight on Martinelli. I fully expect him to turn it around. But it just kind of shows that if Martinelli does go off the boil, his goals and assists can suffer because of that. I feel like Saka it feels like he's almost consistent.
But that one Martinelli goal,
it's big, huge. It's like what? It's like what 5?
Massive.
And that's why I fully expect him to kick on and do more.
Yeah.
And to be fair to Martinelli, he had goals like he scored against Everton. He was like offside by marginal, whatever. So it's just that it's just that Saka's getting GAs when I know he's had an okay game, but he's got a GA. Martinelli's had okay games and not had GAs.
Yeah.
So I think that's for me, especially this season, is the fundamental difference of like we've played 12 games and Saka might have 10 goal and assist contributions.
The final third influence.
And it's just crazy. It's super crazy to see that kind of consistency from a very young guy.
Yeah.
And the pressure on Saka
Martinelli's had an injury as well.
And the pressure on Saka has got worse and worse and bigger every time. Every game goes on, every season goes on. It's like, well, now he has to do this.
Yeah.
And it's to see him like shoulder that pressure that, fans kicking him all over the place. I was saying, deal with it. That's part of football.
Yeah.
The games, he just
playing every week.
He starts every week, 3 games a week. I didn't think he had the personality to actually thrive under. He just seemed like a good kind of kid who wanted to just kind of play football. I didn't think he had the personality to be this kind of like super
mentality.
To be this kind of superstar. Yeah. Whereas I always thought Martinelli kind of wanted to be Ronaldo.
Yeah. I definitely think Saka has that. 100% Saka has that mentality of like,
I just didn't know that.
Be the best.
Yeah, I just didn't.
You wouldn't have thought that early on, but obviously that's hard to tell with young players. But yeah, moving on to first place, as I'm sure all of you know, if you know anything about football, which clearly the people I asked do, because every single person had him first. Yeah. There was no discrepancy. Mohamed Salah, maximum points.
All I can say about Salah is he turned me from an absolute naysayer to a believer.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I can say is like, I used to play FPL and never have Salah in because I thought he was a shit player. And now it's impossible to not have Salah in. And I think that just says it all in terms of like, it comes to a point where you have to put all agendas aside.
Yep.
All personal feelings.
Unless it's VVD.
Well, just because he's shit.
Yeah.
So. Like all personal feelings, all, whatever you want to do, however you want to shape it up. I even saw a comp. I don't know if you saw this comp of all of Salah's goals this season. They look nasty.
Yeah. I saw someone reply to it with the Frank Lampard. Another bad goal. Another goal from a corner. Another sloppy goal.
But it doesn't matter. We've seen him score the bangers. We've seen him score the worldies. No one could have ever have thought he would have been this good or this consistent.
Yeah. I think the consistency
is crazy.
Is just what's propelling him into like a different atmosphere.
Yeah.
To score 20 plus for 6-7 seasons in a row. And also I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago on the pod.
His Anfield record.
Yeah. Not only that, but also the way his assist numbers in recent years have increased. And the way his game's kind of almost, now he's realizing, okay, I'm not playing with Bobby Firmino, who is just gonna he's just a master of getting on the ball on the half turn and putting me and Mane in. Now I'm playing with Darwin Núñez,
who I need to put in,
who maybe isn't going to do that. So I need to get the ball and play these parts. I never, ever thought Salah would have that capability.
Do you know what goal changed everything for me with Salah? It was the finish versus Chelsea like 2 years ago or something, where he cuts in on his left foot.
Yeah.
And it's like...
the one at Anfield.
He just smacks it top bit. And I still don't fully understand how the angles of the ball got there. But watching it real time, I just couldn't believe, one, that he would try it, and two, that it would actually sort of come off. And I thought, all right, whatever I have to say about him, it's a 30-yard screamer in a big game.
Yeah, the big game thing as well.
Yeah.
Like we're saying, obviously we did a preview for this weekend's games. Check that out if you haven't seen it. Like, they're playing Man City, and we're both confident he's at the Etihad, and we're both confident he's going to.
Salah is like, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Rain, hail, sleet, snow, home, away from home, he's going to get his.
Yeah.
And his mentality is I think his best ability of like, I don't know, just pushing himself to be the best year in, year out, to get the most goals, to get the most assists. He'll tell you at the beginning of the season, I'm going to finish with the most goals, I'm going to finish with the most assists.
And also to be where he is now, having that front three of Firmino, Mane, and him, the like one that everyone was lauded for so many years, for Firmino and Mane to have now moved on, and Salah to still be there and still be propelling this Liverpool team to where they are. Obviously, Nunes and Diaz are good players, very good players, but for Salah to have carried on there,
the linchpin,
and still be like, yo, look, we're gonna do this.
He's the only reason I think Liverpool are title contenders. Seriously, you take Salah out of that team, you've taken out 20 to 25 goals in the Prem alone.
Yeah.
And I think that,
he's definitely one of the reasons.
Well, he's the... Take anybody else out of that team.
I don't think he's the most important player in that Liverpool team.
100%.
I don't think he is.
I think the reason we think they have such a potent strike force is because Salah is consistent, going to get his, and
true,
everybody else could get one or two or whatever.
But let's say the front line is Jota, Nunes, and Diaz, but the back line doesn't have Virgil van Dijk.
Jota, Nunes, and Diaz is lunch. That's easy. That's an easy meal.
with no Van Dijk, I don't know if Liverpool are making Europa League. But that's a different conversation.
That's a different conversation. I just think that he's just a guaranteed 20 goals in the Prem, which is there's probably 2 or 3 players who you could ever think are going to be a guaranteed 20 goals in the Premier League. And as you say,
and like we say, the opposition doesn't matter, which I feel like is the biggest
home
factor.
and away. Doesn't matter. 12:30, 5:30, 3 o'clock.
Monday night, Friday night, doesn't matter. Salah's gonna get his gun. He's got goals in Champions League finals. Obviously won the league with Liverpool. And I think it was quite obvious that he was going to be where he is. Because even last year when Liverpool didn't have a great season, he still got 20 plus goals, 10 plus assists.
He fell off.
Yeah,
it was the last season of Salah. He's probably got 5 and 5 at the beginning of the season.
He's another one who almost certainly would make an all-time wingers list,
100%. I think, not only does he make an all-time wingers list, I think when it's all said and done, the numbers are just going to be staggering. Obviously, put Ronaldo's numbers and that kind of stuff aside, but I think his numbers are going to be staggering.
In terms of Premier League, his numbers, I think, are better than Ronaldo.
It could be. It legitimately could be. Legitimately could be. As you say, 6 plus seasons, 20 plus. Ronaldo wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
The
consistency is just off the charts, man.
Saudi's calling.
We hope.
It's all over.
But that was our top 10 wingers list. Just to run through the top 10 one last time. Grealish in 10th, Rashford in 9th, Bowen in 8th, Neto in 7th, Diaz in 6th, Foden in 5th, Sterling in 4th, Martinelli in 3rd, Saka in 2nd, and Mo Salah as number 1. Which I think overall looks like a pretty decent list.
Yeah, it's not bad. Those you probably would say the top 10 best wingers in the league.
Shall I read out Bat's list?
Yeah, it has to be done.
So Bat's list, from 10 to 1. Diaby, Hwang Hee-chan, Pedro Neto, Brennan Johnson, Brian Mbeumo, Jeremy Doku, Kulusevski, Saka, Bowen, and Salah.
I like Hwang Hee-chan, but he must be moving back.
yeah.
To even still have him ahead of Diaby. He must be seriously moving back.
I mean, some of the names he's missed off: Martinelli, Sterling, Foden, Diaz, Rashford.
Did he have Neto? Oh yeah, Neto.
Yeah, he had Neto. But yeah, man, I think overall that's a fairly decent list.
Yeah, for sure.
The only one I'm really looking at in there, and I'm like, I don't know if this guy should be here, is Grealish, but he's won the trophies. I respect him for that. For that alone, I put him in there just because he should stay at Villa and be our hometown hero. No, yeah, he should. He's right to leave. He's right to leave,
no.
Because like we always say, at the end of the day, it's like, to quote Roy Keane, put your medals on the table.
Literally, man. Like for whatever you wanted to say about Graham Souness and all this kind of stuff, he won his trophies. And if you're going to be on Sky Sports giving any sort of opinion or any sort of controversial opinion or whatever it is, you better have the pedigree to back it up. Otherwise, you're going to get called out every corner.
I still remember when Carragher and Roy Keane were having the argument, and Roy Keane was like, Carragher's talking about what it takes to win a title, and Roy Keane was like, "How would you know?"
Rio, I remember Rio does that all the time. Rio's like, you're on every week talking about what it takes to win the Premier League. You wouldn't know. And it's like, how could you, as a player, as an ex-player, obviously this is your passion, your life,
and you can't say anything to that.
I've seen Carragher go on like not rants, but like go on like long soliloquies about how like he loved football more than anybody else at Liverpool. And, like, it was just he bled football, all this kind of stuff, but. If you don't win the trophies, and guys are saying, anybody says, but what would you know what it takes?
Yeah.
You would burn my soul differently. You'll burn my soul. And every year you see a new winner, and every year you see a new guy, and you think.
So just for argument's sake, and we'll end it on this. Let's argument's sake, Arsenal win the league this year. Where's Martinelli in your list?
Right underneath, it'll be Salah, Saka, Martinelli.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, 100%.
But
however, if Martinelli gets 20,
he
might jump to second.
Okay, yeah.
He might jump to second. Even if Saka gets 15 and 15, if Martinelli gets 20 goals, I'd be like
big time.
Yeah,
big time.
I'd be like 30 next season.
He's already got that Man City one as well, so that's already 5.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode. We'll be back next week with the regular roundup after what looks like a big weekend of Premier League fixtures. Sure. And yeah, anyone who sent their list in, appreciate it. Obviously helps with the content and the idea of the video. And yeah, thank you guys and peace.
One love. See you next week.